Hi, this is Dr. David Branham. I am doing the video today on the Texas Legislature. I'm hopeful that this will increase your knowledge, help you do better on the test. Let me start by sharing my screen. I have a PowerPoint that I want to share. This is a PowerPoint on the Texas Legislature, and a video on the Texas Legislature is a supplement presentation for your assigned book chapter on the Texas Legislature. It should help you on the test. Should help also with understanding of how things work in the Texas Legislature. Both houses of the Texas Legislature, the Texas House of Representatives and the Texas Senate, are elected. Their members are elected from single member districts. That means that each house the House of Representatives has 150 seats. They divide the state into 150 districts. Those districts are fairly equal in size as far as population goes, within plus or minus 5%. And they're done after the census is taken. So districts are drawn every 10 years. After the results of the census are published, then the new districts, therefore, were drawn for the 2023 elections, which have already taken place, and they will be redrawn for the 2033 elections. So we have the same districts from 2023 elections to 2031, and then in 2033, we'll have new districts. Districts must be drawn so population in each is about equal, each of 150 in the House and each of the 31 in the Senate. All of them have about the same population. The Texas Senate with 31 seats now has a Senate population, their districts are over 1 million people. The House districts with 150 seats, their districts are over 200,000 people. So they're equal in population, but you represent a whole lot of people from those legislative seats. In the redistricting process, natural boundaries that form geographic areas like counties, they're not divided. It's unusual for, there's stories of people drawing lines down the middle of apartment complexes and things like that. In Texas, they don't want to do that unless it's absolutely necessary for equalization of population. So it will be a rare occasion when you see an unusual boundary in a legislative district. In metropolitan counties like Harris County, which is huge, have about 1/6 of the population in Harris County of the entire state. What they'll do is they'll count up how many seats belong in Harris County, and then they say, okay, Harris County, you have this many seats. And then all of those seats will reside in Harris County. So they'll divide up, let's say Harris County has 25 districts. That's a hypothetical, 25 districts. They'll put 25 districts inside of Harris County, and all of those districts will be completely inside the county. None of them will cross county lines. House and Senate elections, House members run every 2 years, which means they're constantly campaigning. It's very difficult if you're a House member. What you hope for is that you don't get opponents. So you want to if you do get an opponent election, you try to beat them as soundly as you can to discourage anybody else from running in the future. So that's the biggest strategy in legislative elections in Texas. Senators run every 4 years. The exception is after redistricting, where senators will have 1 2-year term during the decade after redistricting. That 2-year term may be the first 2 years, so they'll go 2 years, 4 years, 4 years, or if they win the drawing, which they have at the beginning of the session after redistricting, senators go 4-year terms, 4-year terms, and then 1 2-year term. They always want to do their 4-year first because they want to save that 2-year run to last. By that time, they're well established in their district. Almost always an easy win because incumbents have a big advantage. Incumbents are elected members of the legislature who run for re-election. Incumbents win about 90% of the time. They have a big advantage. In both the House and Senate, incumbents have a big advantage in their elections. Typically, House and Senate incumbents running for re-election win over 90% of the time, but the biggest hurdle is for incumbents who are running after redistricting, when they're running, because a lot of the people are new. That's the reason why the senators want to do that 4-year term first. they have a lot of new constituents that they want to serve, and they want them to get used to their name. They don't want it just to be 2 years. So that name recognition matters. The service in your district matters. So during redistricting, that's when re-election is most vulnerable for incumbents. And while it's rare, sometimes incumbents are placed in the same district as another incumbent. And that's really a nightmare. It happens though. And a lot of times it happens out of punishment. For instance, Veronica Gonzalez, which you'll read about in my article on District 41, after she won her House seat, she was placed in redistricted into a district with another House member, and she just retired. She's just because she understood she couldn't win that district. So despite the fact that she had pulled off an incredible upset and won her House seat, it didn't last long. To be eligible to run for re-election or for election to the Texas Legislature, House members have to live in their district they're running for. So if you're drawn out of a district you want to be in, sorry, you still have to run for the district you live in. You got to be at least 21 years old, and you have to be a resident of Texas for at least 2 years. In the Senate, you also have to live in the district you're running for. You must be at least 25 years old, and you must be a resident of Texas for at least 2 years. Interestingly, members of Congress, the House of Representatives, they don't have to live in their district to run for their district. A lot of people think they do. You don't do it. And those who actually win seats and don't live in the district, they almost always move right in there as soon as possible. But technically, you don't have to live in your district. You do have to live in the state that the district's in. So if you live in the Woodlands, you can't run for a congressional district House seat in Louisiana. But if you live in Sheila Jackson Lee's district in the 3rd Ward, you can run for Congress in a district that's in the Woodlands. There's no law against that as long as you live in the state. So that's how the federal U.S. House of Representatives is different than the Texas Legislature. Texas Legislature, if you don't live in the district, you don't get to run. House of Representatives has 150 seats. They're nonpartisan in their business. This is strange to people because if you watch Congress, it's almost all partisan. It's strongly partisan. Democrats against Republicans all the time. Votes are almost always divided down party lines. In the Texas House, sometimes the Texas Senate, but especially in Texas House, that's not the case. The House elects a speaker to lead them out of their chamber. A lot of times this House member has got support from Democrats and Republicans. A lot of times it'll be the moderate Democrats and the moderate Republicans leaving out the right-wing Republicans and the left-wing Democrats and selecting a speaker in the middle. It's not unusual then for there to be a Democrat chairing a committee in a House with majority Republicans. That's not unusual, or vice versa. When Democrats were the majority in the House, Republicans sometimes chair committees. So it is nonpartisan in its business. On the ballot, they'll have an R and a D. When they're campaigning, it's R's and D's. When they're in the House, that goes away. They also meet for 140 days in odd number years. So they meet from January to May in the odd number years. So the sessions will be 2025, 2027, 2029, 2031. Those sessions will be from January to May. Those will be regular sessions for 140 days. They don't meet in a regular session any other time. They take an entire year off during even number years, and they take over half the year off in odd number years. Texas doesn't meet often, and that's in the Texas Constitution. That's part of the culture of Texas. Is we don't want our government working. We don't want government doing anything because government is corrupt. It's part of the culture. So that's how often the House meets. The Texas Speaker of the House often has bipartisan support, like I said. It is not unusual for many in the majority party to dislike a speaker while members of the minority party offer the speaker support. That happens. And the speaker selects members of the committees. That's powerful. Then the speaker assigns bills to the committees after that. So the speaker has incredible power on what bills will get passed. Because if it doesn't come out of committee, it doesn't get passed. If you want a bill that not to come out of committee, you just give it to committee that'll bury it, pigeonhole it. Okay, the committee will pigeonhole the bill, put it at the back of the line, and you'll never see it on the House floor. And the speaker has the power to select where that bill goes. So he'll just tell his committee member, I want this bill here because I don't want it to not come out. Because the speaker's the one that picks that chair anyway. Chair will probably do exactly what the speaker wants. So the speaker has a lot of power when it comes to bills because he selects the members of the committees, he selects the bills, or where the bills go to committees. The speaker also serves on powerful boards like the Legislative Budget Board, the Legislative Audit Committee, and the Legislative Council. These boards make very, very powerful decisions, especially when it comes to budgeting. The LBB, the Legislative Budget Board, is very powerful. The Texas Senate only has 31 seats. Wow. If you're a Texas senator, you're a powerful person. It's nonpartisan in its business. However, because the lieutenant governor is the leader, not elected by the Senate, but elected by the people, it's naturally more partisan, especially if the lieutenant governor is from the same party as the majority in the Senate. So if Republicans are in the majority and Dan Patrick is lieutenant governor, that body's going to be conservative in comparison to the House because of the dynamics of it. But it is still nonpartisan. It meets every 140 days in the odd number of years, just like the Texas House. If you want to go to the Texas House from Texas Senate, just walk a few steps and you're there, right next door. So they're right next to each other. They're in session at the same time, business going on at the same time. The Texas Senate, the leader of Texas Senate, like I said, is the lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor selects members of the committees. The lieutenant governor assigns bills to committees. So the lieutenant governor has that huge bill power, just like the Speaker of the House does. And the lieutenant governor serves on the Legislative Budget Board, the Legislative Audit Committee, and the Legislative Council. Very powerful. The Texas legislative process. Bills must be introduced by members of the legislature. Bills can start in the House or the Senate, doesn't matter, but they must be introduced by a member of the legislature, the House or the Senate. All bills are referred to committees. We know who selects those committees and who refers the bills to those committees. The members of those committees have great power to alter the bill. They can change the bill up as they wish. The committee must approve the bill by majority to send it to the floor for consideration. So it's very easy for something to get buried in committee, get pigeonholed, and not come out. If a bill is placed at the back of the line for consideration by the committee, so it will not be considered during the session, it is said to be pigeonholed. Know that for your test. A majority of the chamber must pass the bill for it to be sent to the other chamber. So if it starts in the House, you need 76 votes to send it to the Senate. It's in the Senate, you need 16 votes to send it to the House. There are several procedural hurdles that must be cleared that can hold up a bill on the floor. It can come out of committee. You have something called calendar committee in the House where they decide what order the bills will be decided on the floor. If you're at the back of the calendar, you're in trouble. So the calendar committee has power. And then people find procedures all the time to delay things. I remember Armando Wally a few years ago found a technicality in the rules that allowed him to have unlimited debate. And he spent the last few days of the session just sitting there talking, stopping all business in the process. So every once in a while, you'll find a rule that allows you to have a lot of power. So, but once a bill has passed one chamber, it's sent to the other for consideration, and the same process is done in the other chamber. When the Texas House of Representatives pass the bills and the Senate passes the same bill with revisions, they have to call a conference committee to form it to iron out a single version of the bill. So it'll pass in both chambers. These are called conference committees. They're made up of 5 House members, 5 Senate members. And the reason why they have these 5, the 5 are chosen because Those 5 need to know exactly what will pass in their House or their Senate. They need to know, because that bill's going to go back for a vote. And if the conference committee messes up and gives too many concessions, there will be people who withdraw their vote. So it's important for them to understand. Conference committee to iron out a single version of the bill is really, really difficult. They're unbelievably successful at it, though. I don't know why, but they are very successful at ironing out a single version that will pass both chambers. The goal is to create a bill that will be acceptable in both chambers. If that doesn't occur, the bill will not pass. Most of the time, it doesn't go to the chamber where it won't pass. It'll just get stuck in the conference committee if that's the case. And that's probably the reason why it seems like they're more successful than they are. But those 5 members know who will vote for it, who won't vote for it, what concessions they can make, what concessions they can't make. They know that. A special session. If business is not taken care of in the regular 140-day session, a special session of the legislature can be called by the governor. The session only lasts 30 days. However, if the desirable legislation is not passed, another session can be called by the governor. The governor sets the agenda for the special session. So the legislature can't come in and add things to the agenda. This is where the governor's power has really increased. And Greg Abbott, as governor, has increased the governor's power tremendously in his time in office. So I think this is a precedent that we're going to see in Texas for a long time. The governor using the special session as much for a weapon as for a tool. Legislators hate special sessions. They need to go home and make money and see their families. They don't like special sessions. So putting them back in for the 30 days, basically paying them peanuts to be there, that is very upsetting for legislators. They don't like it. And so most of the time, it's a nice strong arm by the governor to get the bill passed that the governor wants passed. It works. So whereas special sessions used to only have one item on the session, it's not unusual. Abbott would put 30 items on a special session, doesn't even hesitate. Knowing, how do you pass 30 bills in 30 days? It's impossible. But things get done. And he'll even add things on later after the session starts and say, okay, we're going to add this on. He did it with teacher pay. He wanted to give the teachers a pay raise because he had a survey that said the teachers are mad at you for not giving them a pay raise. So he said, it's a special session item. Give the teachers a pay raise. And it worked. So the special session is particularly important to the governor's power. And I think it was a brilliant move on Abbott's part, and it's something we're going to see, regardless of it's a Democrat or Republican, in the future in the governors. Bill outcomes: bills not passed by both chambers at the end of the session die and are not considered by the governor. And they are not picked up at the next session either. They have to restart the entire process over. So if a bill dies, even if it's on the brink, it's on the calendar, about to go up, and doesn't get voted on, next session, it has to start all over again. Bills passed by both chambers are then sent to the governor. If the governor takes no action on the bill, it will pass without the governor's signature at the end of the gubernatorial consideration period. It'll pass. And that's only a few days. So if the governor doesn't want to sign it, but the governor also doesn't want to veto it, then the governor can just let it sit and it'll pass. And the governor can say, I don't want to take credit for it. I didn't really sign it. I didn't support it, but it passed. If the governor wants to veto a bill, he has to actively, or she has to actively veto the bill. You have to sign that the bill is stopped. Stop the bill from passing. They have to say, I do not pass this bill. If the governor signs the bill into law, it will become law. New laws passed in the regular session typically take effect on September 1, and the legislative process is very busy. So one tidbit: the 80th legislature passed 1,481 bills. it's not unusual for between 1,400 and 2,000 bills to get passed in a session. That's a lot of bills. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of committee work. It's a lot of assignments. It's a lot of writing. Being a legislator is a hard work. It doesn't pay well, but there's a whole bunch of people who want to do it because it is a high status position. You can turn it into riches. So while the Texas Constitution tried to create a legislature that didn't profit from their office, they failed. Legislators profit from their office. That's the end of this video. Thank you. I hope you do well on the test. I hope you have learned a lot, know a lot more about your legislature. If you want to meet with me, you can email me. I'm happy to answer your emails, or I can schedule a Zoom meeting with you. You just let me know. I'm happy to do it. I wish you well. Bye.